Hi guys, this is Anna and welcome to my channel and to my very first video for the Shaketube 2017. And in this video we'll talk about the very first play we have read over the course of this week, and that is The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. I was quite reticent about, first of all, participating in the video format and discussing my opinion on Shakespeare. Firstly, because English is my second language, and for a very, very long time, although I have read Shakespeare for years secretly, I always felt like I wasn't good enough to understand his written work in his original language. So I would read some of his works, first translate it into Russian and then try to read them in English. But then the more you read Shakespeare, even if English is your first language, the more you get out of his plays anyway. And it's an old English language, so some of the people who are native English speakers still struggle with the text. So I thought, screw it, I will participate on equal footing. Yes, I might misunderstand some of the things, but I have read all of the plays we will be reading from this week all the way to December 2017, several times before embarking into this project. And the more you read Shakespeare, the more you get out of him. So that was my first apprehension. My second one was the fact that I'm not really keen on Shakespeare's comedy. It's just a personal preference. I much prefer his drama. I really love his sort of less funny, less jokey works. But saying that, I think Taming of the Shrew, or The Taming of the Shrew, is probably one of the easier ways to get into the Shakespeare, because his comedy is definitely much more approachable. Lastly, this is probably one of my least plays by William Shakespeare. And again, it could be the preference or personal choice. It's not about the chauvinistic nature, we'll get to that in a moment. It's mostly about the inconsistency of the plot. The backbone is there, but there are just so many loose ends which Shakespeare never came back to tie in, and the more I read it, the more they're just glaring at me and I just want to go over. It's like, why did you leave it open? Why did you just started this little plot within the plot and just left it hanging? I like everything to tie in together. However, William Shakespeare was a young man. It's one of his earlier plays and it was written in the 1590s. So you have to get into this work with the mindset of the whole play written for the audience who had very different sensibilities to what we have now in the 21st century. So don't judge either William Shakespeare or his characters as being chauvinistic pigs just because you're much more of a feminist and you disagree profoundly with the plot. So if you can take this aside, then just enjoy the comedy of it, because there are some jokes in this short play. The play will take you about 2 hours to read. It's a very short. And personally, I would highly recommend that if you're new to Shakespeare, either read him aloud, because I mentioned before on my channel, I hate reading Shakespeare. I love listening to his words. He has written plays to be performed in the theatre, so his work should be enjoyed by someone else reading it, or you reading it out loud. So because of my accent, I'm always a little bit shy about reading Shakespeare out loud, because it does come out wrong. But I do love the audiobook. So if you never read The Taming of the Shrew, maybe the best way for you to be going around it would be to get an audiobook. There's plenty on Audible if you want to, in your local library. But if you don't want to spend money on it, why not just get a free copy of William Shakespeare from a library or from Project Gutenberg. So I'm currently in Russia, and this week I reread the actual written thing, because I was by myself in the house, so I could try to read it out loud. So I have reread it because I downloaded it from Project Gutenberg, and I also treated myself to an audiobook, and oh my god, the audiobook is way better. I'm not an actor, I can never get into the character that way. It's just each character brings something new to the development of the character. So without giving you too much of information, the idea of The Taming of the Shrew is we have two sisters, Catherine the oldest being the Shrew. The Shrew is the medieval word meaning the sort of a willful woman, or actually a willful man as well, back in the 1600s. Basically a woman who knows her own mind and is not too shy to speak it out. A woman who we sometimes, with a current vocabulary, will be calling a bitch. Pardon my English, but that's just how it is. So she's the older sister, Catherine or Kate, and then you have her younger sister who is complete opposite. She's pious, she's beautiful, she's everything a woman should be for the 16th century idea of the woman. So Bianca's the youngest, and the father is really keen to marry both daughters, because the younger one is so pious, most men really fancy her as the bride. And the father realizes that he's going to be left with the older sister. No one will want her. So he makes a deal saying that, well, I will marry Bianca out, but only when her older sister Kate finds a husband. And then Petruccia comes along and he embarks on the taming of the Catherine. He marries her, she agrees to marry him, and then through that brief introduction for the marriage, he completely changes her personality. It culminates in her giving a very famous speech. It's the longest speech of the entire play, right at the end of the book, where she says that the woman should really obey her husband because she's a property of men, ultimately. But that's again how the society used to view the woman. If you're quite offended by that, just look at it differently. Women were a property of the man. In some cultures, they were no better than a horse. In fact, in Mongolian cultures or other cultures, a woman was a lesser good compared to a good horse. And you could definitely trade her. And women used to get married at 12, going back to 1590s. You had your first period, you could get married, and who cared if you died? You could just get another wife. And 50% of women did die giving birth. So it's a very different world. It's a young Shakespeare, it's less polished Shakespeare, but the backbone of his writing is in this play, and it is nonetheless really enjoyable. So I do hope you read it and you get something out of it. Look, if English is my second language and I can read it in English, in medieval English, and get something out of it, then so can you. Anyone can. My copy back at home in Cambridge is an Oxford edition. I have all of the Shakespeare in the Oxford edition, and it has quite a lot of useful commentary. So if you don't own your own copy and you would like to get one, that could be one of the better ones to recommend. And I got mine in the charity shop secondhand in perfect condition. So there are lots of Shakespeare you can buy secondhand with really good commentary. The Bloom's Anthology on Shakespeare, which the founders of the Shaketube 2017 really use for the guidance on the list, I thoroughly dislike. I disagree with that anthology on many points, so I'm not going to be reading that alongside. And quite frankly, I don't think you need an anthology. There is Wikipedia if you want to get more out of it, but try to read it without someone else's commentary riding along you, and think what you think. Just, it's your reading experience, and you will definitely get something out of it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to week 2, and definitely better play in my opinion. So I'll see you next Friday. Bye guys.